Far within the forests of Chile stood a lavish, secluded cabin, surrounded by thick woodland. A man named Michael was spending quiet time there, far removed from the outside world. With him was Cindy, a woman keeping him company. The two appeared relaxed, enjoying the peace and isolation. But Michael had no idea that a team of professional assassins had already been sent to eliminate him. One of them, a sniper named Facundo, had taken position at a distance and was locked onto his target. Two others, Hilda and Alexei, were stationed nearby, waiting for the signal to strike. The reason for the hit was simple: Michael had grown old. His usefulness had expired. Once the mission was complete, another operative named Carl arrived by helicopter to extract the team. After boarding, they returned to their hidden base. The story then shifts to Seattle, Washington, where a man named Duncan Vizla was undergoing a routine medical checkup. During the examination, the doctor noticed numerous scars across Duncan's body. His ribs had previously been fractured and reinforced with metal plates. After reviewing everything, the doctor informed Duncan that his health was improving and advised him to quit smoking. Duncan agreed, but stepped outside and lit a cigarette almost immediately. Later that day, Duncan met with his financial advisor, the person responsible for managing his assets. They discussed his annual charitable donation, his properties across 4 states, and his efforts to maintain a low golf handicap. Shortly after, a woman named Vivian contacted Duncan and requested a face-to-face meeting. Duncan ended the call within seconds and destroyed his SIM card. They later met at a restaurant. During their conversation, Vivian explained that 4 operatives working for Damocles had recently been killed. One of them was Michael, who had been murdered at his cabin. Vivian said they suspected the Russian mafia was behind the attack. She told Duncan that a Mexican hitman named Pedro had been hired for the job and had since traveled to Belarus. When Duncan asked why she was sharing this information, Vivian explained that her superior, Mr. Blut, wanted Duncan to go to Belarus and eliminate Pedro. The goal was to send a message that the organization would never tolerate attacks on its agents. Duncan refused, reminding her that he had retired from that life. He then traveled to a remote area in Montana. After picking up supplies from a local shop, he spotted a stray dog on his way home. Feeling a connection to the stray dog, Duncan decided to adopt it. His cabin stood alone in a snow-covered forest, far from the nearest town. That night, he relaxed with the dog and watched a movie. As he drifted off, he was haunted by a disturbing nightmare, one tied to a mission from his past. The next morning, while outside, he noticed a young woman at a neighboring house struggling to chop firewood. Her name was Camille. Duncan watched quietly from a distance, then returned inside without saying a word. He ignored several messages from Vivian that had appeared on his laptop. Later that evening, Camille returned home to find her firewood already chopped. Duncan had done it without telling her. That night, he finally responded to Vivian's messages. He called her and gave her exactly 30 seconds to explain what she wanted. She offered $2 million, half paid immediately. Duncan remained silent as she tried to make small talk, but he cut her off once the time was up. At that moment, Vivian was seated with Mr. Blut and Hilda. Blut, the head of Damocles, ran the organization like a business, specializing in high-level assassinations. The agency had a rule: every operative must retire at 50 and receive a generous pension. But Blut had other plans. He intended to send Duncan to Belarus to be eliminated. There was a clause in the contract: if an agent died before turning 50 and had no family, the pension would revert to the company. Vivian grew uneasy and warned Blut that targeting Duncan was a mistake. He dismissed her concerns and insisted they move forward. The team then shifted focus to the upcoming sale of Damocles, discussing financial details and ownership questions. Without waiting for approval, Duncan traveled to Belarus. On the way, he experienced the same haunting nightmare. Once there, he met Rosalie, an old contact, and laid out a plan to locate Pedro and complete the mission. Rosalie went to Pedro's hotel and called the front desk, pretending her door wouldn't open. The hotel sent a maintenance worker, Duncan in disguise. He used a drill to make loud noises, drawing attention. Inside Pedro's room, Duncan found a file about himself. He realized he hadn't been sent to kill Pedro. Pedro had been hired to kill him. When Duncan asked who gave the order, Pedro said he didn't know. It was a dark web contract. To verify the truth, Duncan tortured him by drilling into his forehead. Then, without hesitation, he killed Pedro. After completing the job, Duncan sent confirmation. Vivian was shaken by the outcome. Duncan safely got Rosalie out and gave her nearly $100,000 for her help. Though she was furious for being put at risk, especially with her child, she took the money and left, vowing never to assist him again. Meanwhile, Vivian, now panicked and angry, confronted Blute. She told him the plan had failed and that they would either have to pay Duncan or live in fear. Realizing Duncan was far more dangerous than expected, Blute summoned his elite team, the same operatives who had killed Michael. They began tracking Duncan's properties. The team reviewed his assets, noting that none of them listed a permanent address. They found homes in Florida and Texas, but couldn't determine where Duncan actually lived. One of the agents pleaded to be released, sensing the danger ahead. While this was happening, Duncan was shopping at a small local store and ran into Camille again. She appeared shy and nervous. Seeing her alone and uneasy, Duncan began to show kindness toward her, though he still hadn't spoken a word. Shortly after, the assassin team reached one of Duncan's properties in Florida. Cindy checked the house and found it was occupied, but not by Duncan. Another man had rented it through an agency. The team questioned him, asking if he was Duncan Vizla and who he paid rent to. The man refused to answer. They moved from one property to another, but each was occupied by unrelated tenants. Their frustration grew as they failed to locate Duncan. Back in Montana, Duncan was sitting with Camille at a local cafe, quietly talking. Duncan and Camille spent more time together, gradually forming a genuine friendship. Camille shared her passion for wildlife photography and showed Duncan several pictures she had taken in the snowy forest nearby. Curious about his life, she asked what he did for a living and why he chose such a remote, solitary existence. Duncan explained that he had once worked in a service that transported the bodies of Americans who died overseas. Now retired, he lived alone and had no family. Camille suggested he could start a small school nearby to teach children about different cultures and countries. Duncan appreciated the idea but admitted he struggled to communicate with kids. It wasn't something he felt naturally equipped to do. Meanwhile, Blute's team was still failing to locate Duncan. They had searched multiple properties with no success. Frustration grew among the operatives. One of them joked bitterly about their luck, warning that Hilda's partner wouldn't be pleased if they failed to find the target, referred to cryptically as the Black Geyser. Eventually, the team discovered which bank Duncan used to send his annual donations. The bank was located in a small town called Triple Oak, Montana. Believing Duncan might return there, they decided to stake it out, despite the harsh conditions and remote location. While staying in the snowy woods, Duncan began teaching Camille how to handle a firearm. He explained the basics: how to aim, how to squeeze the trigger gently, and how to stay calm under pressure. Camille listened carefully, though she was nervous. Duncan reassured her and promised they'd find something more suitable if she wasn't comfortable. At the same time, Blute's team had already arrived in the region and was watching the local bank, hoping Duncan would appear. Cindy, one of the operatives, staged a breakdown with her car and approached Duncan, pretending her phone had died. She asked if he had a charger in his vehicle. Duncan told her he didn't, but offered to help if she came to his cabin. She accepted the offer and thanked him. As the storm intensified, she mentioned the earliest roadside assistance wouldn't arrive until morning. Duncan invited her to stay warm and asked if she was hungry. She nodded. That night, Cindy seduced Duncan, and for a brief moment, it seemed he let his guard down. Outside, Facundo the sniper had taken position while Hilda and Alexei prepared to breach the cabin. The team coordinated silently, ready to strike, but something went wrong. As they moved in, they realized Duncan wasn't there. Confusion spread among the team. They heard strange noises and began to panic. Duncan ambushes them and one by one kills all of them except for Alexei. With only Alexei remaining from the assassin team, Duncan used a hotel key to track him down. While searching the hotel, Duncan encountered Alexei's intoxicated girlfriend. In her drunken state, she accidentally revealed their backup plan. If they failed to kill Duncan, they were to kidnap Camille. The revelation confirmed Duncan's worst suspicion. It was his own agency that wanted him dead. He rushed to Camille's home, only to find it destroyed and Camille missing. Elsewhere, Blute was furious. His carefully orchestrated mission had failed. He mocked Duncan's loss, promising to mutilate him and feed him to rats. Vivian urged him to reconsider, suggesting they simply pay Duncan his pension and move on. But Blute refused. This was personal. He was done listening to advice. Duncan traveled to Michigan to meet Porter, a former informant. He hoped to uncover more about Blute and the agency's motives. During their conversation, Duncan shared details about the 2 failed assassination attempts. Porter confirmed the existence of a hidden clause in Damocles' contracts. If an agent died before officially retiring and had no family, the company would reclaim their pension. Duncan realized the truth. They didn't want to pay him the $8 million he was owed. Porter asked if he trusted Vivian. Duncan said no. Porter guessed she was probably hiding out at the mansion. Soon after, Duncan was captured and chained inside an old warehouse. Blute arrived with his men, pleased to see Duncan restrained and vulnerable. He called him by his infamous nickname, Kaiser, and said Duncan should have died quietly without resistance. Blute promised the next few days would be filled with pain. He began carving shallow but agonizing wounds into Duncan's skin using a sharp chisel. He declared he would torture Duncan for 3 full days, and on the 4th, Duncan's 50th birthday, he would finally kill him. Meanwhile, Camille was being held in another location, drugged and tortured. As Blute continued stabbing Duncan, his blade struck the steel plate near Duncan's ribs and snapped. Enraged, Blute grabbed Duncan and gouged out one of his eyes in a fit of fury. After the torturers left, Duncan, weak, bleeding, and barely conscious, managed to pull the broken blade from his stomach. Using it, he unlocked his restraints. The following day, when Blute returned to continue the torment, Duncan reversed the situation and attacked. The guards hesitated, unsure of what to do, but Duncan didn't give them the chance. While Camille remained imprisoned and tortured inside the mansion, Duncan escaped and made his way to a trusted friend's house. From there, he contacted Vivian. He offered a deal. He would surrender and allow himself to be killed, as long as Camille was spared. Blute was stunned by the offer. He couldn't understand why this girl mattered so much to Duncan. In the end, he decided he would kill them both if given the chance. Blute's team scrambled to prepare. But Duncan had no intention of surrendering. Despite his injuries, he began preparing to dismantle Blute's entire operation. With help from Yasmin, a friend who had been guarding his hidden weapons cache, Duncan accessed his arsenal and selected gear for the final assault. He set everything in motion and hit the road. Meanwhile, Blute's team was tracking Duncan's location. They had narrowed down his general vicinity but needed another call to confirm. Vivian insisted he would reach out again. Confident, she waited. When Duncan finally called, he offered a trade, himself for Camille. Vivian believed he had lost his mind and ordered her team to capture him. But Duncan had already planned for this. As soon as they moved in, he triggered a hidden defense system. Automated weapons activated, unleashing a barrage of gunfire on the soldiers. In the chaos, Duncan infiltrated the mansion. He found Camille, severely injured but still alive, and carried her out. He brought her back to his cabin, where he spent the next 3 days nursing her back to health. One afternoon, while checking Camille's room, Duncan discovered something unsettling. Her bed was covered with notes, photographs, and documents, all about him. Among them were images of people he had killed, including one mission that stood out: the murder of her family. The truth hit him hard. For years, Duncan had been haunted by nightmares. Now he understood why. 9 years earlier, he had carried out a mission that resulted in the death of an entire family he believed to be dangerous. But there had been a young girl in the house, one he couldn't bring himself to kill. That girl was Camille. Camille later confronted him. She described how, every time she closed her eyes, she could feel her brother's cheek against her shoulder and her mother's hand wrapped around hers. She could feel them, but never see them. With tears in her eyes, she asked why Duncan hadn't recognized her at the store. She wanted to know if he had known all along. Duncan nodded. He said he hadn't wanted to remind her of her past or destroy her future. He admitted he couldn't undo what had happened, but he had tried to make her life better in any way he could. Then, he told her to take the gun and shoot him if it would bring her peace. He was ready to die. Camille stood frozen, torn between rage and compassion. Though she had every reason to hate him, she couldn't bring herself to pull the trigger. She fired deliberately off target, missing on purpose. Then she asked Duncan to help her uncover who had ordered the death of her father. Duncan promised he would find out. He stepped outside for a smoke, and shortly after, Camille joined him. Quietly, she suggested they work together from now on. Well, that's it guys, that's the end of the movie. Leave a comment and let us know your thoughts. Please subscribe to my channel, it would mean the world to me. Also, remember to like the video and gently touch on the bell icon to receive a notification whenever I release a new video. I will see you in the next video. Take care and be well.